Recording now.
Shall I start? Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. My name is Doreen Tutera, and I'm a first year doctoral student in the higher education program. I'm also a GA with the Office for Multicultural Student Access and Retention.
My name is Augustine Gyekye, and I'm also in the higher education program first year, second semester. And we are going to present on Russian higher education system. But before that, I work with the Center for Campus and Community Engagement. So let's start with a brief history about the higher education system um, in the Soviet Union, like the Soviet period or the era, and when Russia became Russia. So the higher education system actually started with the establishment of some universities that they call the elite universities. I think there are two universities. One is in Moscow, and the other one is in Pittsburgh. And this was somewhere in the 18th century. That is also similar to the German education system as well. And these two institutions are um, seen as the national institutions, like they are just two, and they are fully under the control of the government. Okay, so there are some differences. Of course, there will be similarities at the period during the Soviet era and also post-Soviet era. So for the first one is the education system at that time that was highly centralized. Okay, um, and also all the people in Russia had at least secondary education. There was also some form of rigidity, okay, in the education system. The system was deciding for students. Students didn't have much say, especially with the classes that they had to take and the jobs that they would do after graduation, because it was more practical. And also they had several and strong systems of incentives, especially with award schemes and achievements. Students were celebrated with their achievements in the course of their educational ladder. But after the Soviet era, each institution in higher education had its own admission policies and its academic program. They decided on what they wanted to insert or input in those academic programs, the details of it. So they had maximum control over the academic programs and the policies that will bind those institutions. And also, they had their own financial resources and statutes of operation. During the Soviet era, majority of the schools were vocational and technical schools, but majority of them were vocational schools. And but after that, when they were past the Soviet era, the vocational schools curriculum, which was kind of only strictly vocational, had some form of reshuffling, and they included the general curriculum to it. So the more of specificity was reduced. Okay, it was only more of specialized. You have to be in this, you don't do that. You have to be in this program, you only pursue that program. But after that, students were allowed to take the general course load. Okay. But one thing about the two periods is that in pursuit of education, higher education, more than 50% of the people had higher education background or were into higher education. So it really helped majority of the people to pursue higher education. Okay, so that is that about the history. Now let's move on to the structure of the Russian higher education system. Okay, their general education is kind of different from the US. Um, they have the preschool, they have the elementary, they have the lower secondary, and the upper secondary, which of course is not like that here in the US. In terms of the types of institutions, they have about 658 state-owned institutions and 450 private civilian university level institutions. But they have some specifically 50 specially funded and research-focused national institutions or national universities, and they have a list attached to that. But 9 of these institutions, that is the total number of institutions, are considered federal universities. Okay, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, there are 2 main national universities. That's the Moscow State University and the St. Petersburg State University, and it's fully controlled by the government, which is not like that in the US, of course. Even though we have elite schools like the Harvard, Doreen, do you have any other universities? We have Syracuse University being the top public administration university in the US. But here is the case that these 2 institutions in Russia are what we consider, or they consider, the national universities. There's nothing like that here in the US. Also, with the academic year or their calendar, we all understand that US academic calendar normally starts from August and will end somewhere in May. Sometimes it can transcend into June, but theirs is from September to June, and they have a long vacation from July to the 31st of August. But let's note this, that at least 2 of higher education study program will fetch a student, 2 years of that will fetch a student a diploma of incomplete higher education. That is, if you are to pursue higher education for the beginning, that is a bachelor's degree. We'll move into that. That is for 4 years, but if you are not able to complete that, you will still get some training and a certificate attached to that, and that will fetch you this diploma of incomplete higher education, okay, that you can use to apply for jobs in that respect. Can you move on to the next one? Okay, so we have in general, we have 3 main degree classifications when it comes to the Russian higher education structure. Okay, the first one is the undergraduate bacala. I don't know how to mention that, but it's the bachelor's. Okay, bachelor's degree, which is the 4-year degree program, which is just like how it is here in the US. They have the master's degree for 2 years. And then last one is the postgraduate higher education, which normally gives the students a diploma of specialist. Okay, and that is for 5 years. But aside that, they also have what we have here as the PhD program. They call it the first level of postgraduate degree, and you can either apply with a master's or a diploma of specialist. Okay, and to obtain that, you have to be in school for 3 years. Okay, but after that, a student will also move into the second highest level. Okay, that is from 5 to 15 years, and after defending the student's dissertation, the Doctor of Science degree will be conferred on that student, okay, to become a full tenured professor in Russia. I think from this educational structure, it's kind of different in the US, especially with the Doctor of Science. I know that majority of students who graduate from an American institution only have to get some papers published and must also finish a PhD before they can get a fully tenured professorship in any field that they are in. But it's kind of different with the Russian higher education system, although there are some similarities. And with the Doctor of Science, which is the highest level, they normally say that it can't be compared to it doesn't have any equivalent in any country. Yeah. So the link below can give you some more details about it. Now let's move on to the cost of tuition. Before we go into the details, obviously, the U.S. education is expensive as compared to that of Russia. Okay, especially with a bachelor's degree. For you to get a bachelor's degree, you'll be spending like 3,300 to like 3,600 bucks per year, which is not like that. I'm sure bachelor's degree here in the US is very expensive. With a specialty degree, it's almost kind of the same thing for a year. But with the master's, there is a bit of a difference because that one is a bit high. And I think the masters match up with the postgraduate programs. Okay, but for summer, the tuition, the average is just 643 bucks averagely. Yeah, so it's not something that is really expensive, especially for people who are coming from Europe and from the US, maybe America. Yeah, but people who are coming from Asia and Africa normally see these figures as huge ones for them and would sometimes need um, tuition waiver and funding, which will be discussed later. Okay, so Doreen will continue with the types of Russian higher education institutions.
Okay, so for the types of higher education institutions, we have the university, we have the academy, we have the institute, we have the technical university, and the conservatory. So the differences are they both have similar functions, but the technical universities offer specialized instructions, while the conservatories offer lessons in music. And when you come to the student's life in Russian higher education, um, one big thing was the fact that student life was not really a big thing in Russian higher education. And although there are some universities that do have the career services or the career centers and advisors, most universities do not have these. And those universities that even have the career officers give those services to students who are done with school. So it's not for the students who are still in school. And it's also important to note that more than half of Russians citizens hold a university degree, and one or some differences between the Russian and American education is the fact that um, in Russia, your grades are sorry, in the US, your grades are private. So when you check your GPA, no one else can see it. The school doesn't put out your GPA to everyone, but in Russia, it's different. Everyone can see your grades, and it's actually a big deal. And also, in most US higher education institutions, you have students from different years and different majors in the same class. Um, but in the Russian education, you do not have that. So if you are doing your master's, the class is just made up of solely master students. There's no PhD student, there's no undergrad. And also the we don't really have or Russian universities don't really have advisors, as I said earlier. The advisors or the academic sorry, the career services are found in the big universities. That's the Moscow University and the St. Petersburg. But the smaller universities don't really have that. So student life in Russia is not really a big deal like in the US. And each year, Russia welcomes students from more than 170 countries. However, 776 higher education institutions across 82 regions in Russia accept international students. And tuition fees for international students vary. So it just depends on your university. Some are expensive than the other. So the universities found in the big cities like Moscow, of course, would have higher tuition, than those in the smaller regions. Also, there are scholarships available to international students, but that is also based on the relationship that exists between the sending country and Russia. And from our research too, we also found out that most international students come into Russia with their own funding from their government. So we have maybe students coming from the UAE coming into Russia with their own funding from their governments. So we interviewed Julia, who is a fifth year student in a vet medicine program in a university. Sorry, I didn't really write that down, but I'm just gonna play the video.
I think the sound is not working.
Can you hear now?
The sound is not working.
Today, not today. Now I have my last
Right
semester.
now.
So my education, yeah. So today, not today. Now I have my last semester. So my education, my high education here during 5 years. And then I become a specialist or something. Not a specialist in our country is something more than just bachelor in USA or in Europe. Do you want to know about general education system in Russia or only about high education?
Okay, so we want to know about a higher education, but you can start by just telling us a little bit about how the system is. Maybe you you go for high school for 2 years or 3 years. So just anything you want us to know, then you can focus on higher education.
Okay, well, in Russia, that's all started with kindergarten by us, yeah. So I think when the child become 2 years old, you as a father or mother, you as a parent, can give your child an opportunity go to kindergarten. But in Russia, not all children. So children don't have to visit this step of education. That's just that depends on willing of parents. Then when child become 7 years old, and it's obligatory, children should go to school, which include elementary school, and it took 4 years. Then middle school, it took 5 years. So from 5th grade to 9th grade. And then young people can choose leave school or not to leave. So when if you want to finish school at after 9th grade, you should obligatory go in technical college. Technical. It's not like university, but it's, I don't know how to explain it.
So it's kind of like a
Okay, well,
vocational and technical school.
yeah.
Okay.
Then, or you can stay at school after ninth grade. Then you have after no how to say. So after ninth grade, you can stay in school more 2 years. So 2 years more.
Okay.
And then you have an opportunity to go to the university. Yeah,
Okay.
and at the universities we have 2 types of education. I don't know how to say. First type, it's when you study 4 years. After 4 years studying in university, you become a bachelor, and then you can. It's your wish to continue your education 2 years more, and then you become a master. Or
Okay.
second type, that's my type of higher education. When you study just 5 years, and then you become a specialist. I don't know what else to say about our educational system, but
So-
you can ask me about something and I try to answer.
Okay, so with the specialized education that you go for 5 years, what are the programs that you can enroll in?
You can start with this type education, vet medicine, just a common human medicine, or couples of buildings educational program. I mean, architect, yeah, and I think that economy safety, we have this educational program. Economy safety, yeah. This educational program contains, I think, also 5 years, and you become specialist.
Okay, so do you have the specialized programs or school in the same system as the normal, 4 years for your bachelor's? I don't know if my question is clear. Like, do you attend a different, are there like different schools for the specialized programs, or it's just like one university or one school for everything?
No, we don't have special universities or special schools for these types of higher education. This common include in just in usual university.
Okay.
So we study together in one university, specialists and bachelor and masters.
Okay. And is it, sorry, Augustine, is it compulsory to have a master's after your bachelor's, or it's optional?
It's optional, but many people say, many old people, for example, my parents or parents, my boyfriend or friends, that have not really complete higher education without master's program. So many old people do pressures on young people. Then they should have master's diploma too. But it's completely optional.
Okay.
So the 5 years is for you to be specialist. That's what you are in now, right?
Right. I forgot to say that some specialists program took more than 5 years, also 6 years. For example, medical students, they are specialists by when you study therapy as a medical student, you should study 6 years. But when you study stomatology, it took also 5 years, like by vet medicine. Sorry.
So you get a PhD.
But mostly it took 5 years.
Okay. So what if the person is not able to complete the 5-year period? Can the person get, say, a master's degree after 2-year period?
I not really understand your question. Can you repeat it?
With a 5 years duration, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that you are in now. So if, say, I want to do the same thing, but after 2 years, I want to stop, can I get a master's degree for that and quit schooling?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So when do you ask me about when you finished only 2 years from
Yes.
this 5 years?
Yes.
So you just losing your time. You can't change the program.
Okay.
You can't. So you just can't do nothing with it.
Great.
Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So what year are you in now?
I'm on the last year, on the
Okay.
5th year.
So that's
So
the
I'm almost done.
okay.
Wow.
Well, you're just near the finish line.
Thanks.
Yeah. So my next question is in relation to funding, because I know most European schools have, free tuition or, something like that. So do you want to talk about how students fund their education?
How students what?
Fund, like, how much do you pay for school? Is it free?
Yeah, I understand. It strangely depends of the region of our country, because our country is very big, and some regions are more attractive for students. For example, Moscow and St. Petersburg are more attractive for young people, because there's a kind of Moscow is a capital, and St. Petersburg is just a big city with a rich history and pretty architect,
Mm-hmm.
So in those, I think that in those two cities, not so many. So in Russia, we have an option when we pass our exams after school, after 11th grade, very well. You can use government scholarship, or kind of, and become an opportunity study for free. So your government, our country pay for our high education. Yeah, but not all educational areas can use this opportunity. For example, law students, jurisprudencia, don't have any government scholarships, because so many people want to go there. So many people want to study this program, enroll this program. So government don't need to give these scholarships, because people already pay for themselves. But some educational programs, for example, program have almost 70% free free places. No, okay. For example, almost 70% people in my group at the university are studying for free.
Wow.
Well, and yeah, that's great, but because our country needs more veterinary specialists, and our country pay for us for our education. On the other hand, economy specialists not really our country need these specialists, but government doesn't pay for economy students. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah. So well, so what you're trying to say is that the government will fund programs or areas that are pertinent to what the country really needs. What you're trying to say is that, like what the country really needs. Can you please repeat? Yeah. So the government would fund programs and areas that are really needed, in like for the country. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Okay. You're right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so do you have any questions?
Yeah. She was talking about international funding. I was going to ask a question about international students who come to Russia to study. Do they also receive such funding from the government? And at what rate is that?
I have some problems with connection. So could you please repeat?
Concerning funding, concerning the scholarship that students receive, does it apply to international students as well?
That's a really, really good question, but I don't know because I'm not an international student. But I know that some international students become really good support from their government. For example, my boyfriend study oil and gas engineering here in Krasnodar, and in his group are 4 or 5 international students. One of them came from Angola. Do you know this country? Yeah. Came from Angola, and that guy become a really good scholarship from his country. I think students who study for free here in Russia by government scholarship, our government scholarship, when they have success in study, so good notes, they become a little money. Also scholarship, I think it's called. And my scholarship in a month is 2,000 rubles. I want to say this in dollars. Okay. Okay, $26 is my scholarship. Yeah, it's not really, that's not so much. That's not much at all. But that guy from Angola become scholarship about $800 in monthly. So his scholarship is much more than my scholarship. That's what I know exactly.
Okay.
But about other countries, for example, about Ghana or about Burundi, one of my group mates came from Burundi. I don't know, because I'm too shy to ask them about it, about money.
Yeah.
So
Okay. But thank you so much. My next question. I hope you're not tired. Are you tired?
yeah, it's nothing.
Okay. So my next question is about so do your schools or do institutions have like resources like career offices, academic advice and students organizations, resources to help students succeed and adjust to college?
I I think it also depends of the region of the universities because our country is too big to say something concretely. But I try to answer. Okay. In my university, we don't have so much of any of them, unfortunately. But I know that in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, big universities have services that can help newbies to know more about the universities, about the city, because many students they are coming from the other regions and live in a big life in a big city not always is easy, and that services help them to appropriate to oh, my awful English. Sorry.
That's fine. To adjust.
Yeah, to adjust to a new places. But I know that in my university we have a service for students when help to find a job, it work. But it work only when you are already graduated. So you have a diploma and they can help you. But unfortunately, in my university, on my faculty, that's very, very hard to find a job during the study. Because we should always visit the classes every day. We can choose the time of our classes. For example, on Monday I want to go classes since 8 to 12 and so on. We can choose. So that's really uncomfortable because in my situation I'm 22 and I'm still on my parents' neck. They pay for me, and that's really uncomfortable for me. So I really want to have an opportunity to a part-time job, but I can't. So not really this student services, in my opinion, not really work. Useless. But it's really useless.
Okay. So last question from me. Last question, I promise. easier to compare education or higher education during the Soviet Union and higher education now in Russia. What would you say about that?
I think that general principles of higher education in Soviet Union and in nowadays Russia are very similar.
Okay.
Because I heard about that in USA and in Europe, teachers don't think that we are children, that we have no words, that we have no emotions and so on. But here, not all teachers, but mostly and especially the old teachers, I think 40 years old or older, think that we have not personal life, have not emotions, that we are still children. I don't know why it is so, but I exactly know that in Soviet Union were the same. That situation was the same. But in general principles, of course, now we have some computers. Since this year, we have almost complete distant educational system on the internet, but earlier we don't have any distance educational system. So this really hard for me to answer on this question, because I don't learn in Soviet Union, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. But as I asked my parents, they say that almost the same.
Okay.
But I think that earlier in Soviet Union, I hope the students become more knowledge than now. I think now that's still a really complicated question for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you did answer the question, so thank you.
One thing that I want to ask you, thank you for your responses. We are really learning a lot. But I want to ask you about health insurance for students. How is it like? Is it free? You pay?
Okay, in Russia, you have free insurance, not when your students are, but always. When you study in school, when you working, you have free insurance, always. That's not depend on do you study anywhere or not. You just have it obligatory. So did I answer on your question, or there was some others?
I think that's it for me, but you did answer the question. Augustine, do you have anything to say?
No, the only thing I wanted to add for the last time will be the countries that are represented most of the times in Russia, from the students that are coming from different countries. Do you think they are more from Africa, from Asia, from maybe US?
No, not US, not from US. I didn't see anybody from there.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think mostly from the Africa. For example, in my group, study only one person, but he's from Burundi. In other groups, I know that some people from Ghana. In my boyfriend's group, when I how I already said, one guy from Angola, and from the Asia, I think it's mostly Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan. Mostly from there come students from Asia. I think that Africa and Asia is the most students from. I didn't see anybody from Europe, USA, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. Never. But maybe in Moscow, I think some people from this country study in Moscow, but not in my city. My city not really popular. How I understand.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Before
you.
you go, what's the name of your school?
Of my university,
Yeah.
Kuban State Agrarian University.
Okay. Okay, Julia. Augustine, do you have anything to add?
No, just thanks. We thank you very much for.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think it's taking much of your time, and
Well, it's nothing. It was really pleasure for me to you remind me how to speak English, and that's my English not really good.
No,
But-
it's good. Because I could actually understand you. Honestly, I could.
Okay,
So yeah.
thanks.
But
How
thank
do
you so much.
Russia.
Bye bye. No.
So thank you again for listening to our presentation. Please let us know if you have any questions or just any feedback. Have a great day and stay safe.